Good morning, everybody. This is Kerry Getz with Strategic Com, and we're here with another edition of our podcast series. Today, we're talking to Greg Crumpton with Service Logic, and he's going to tell us how he got into the data center industry, and we're going to talk a little bit about the services side of the industry and how that's applicable to the data center. So good morning, Greg. You want to tell us a little about yourself?
Well, good morning. I now that I'm 55 years old, I've got a lot to talk about, but I know we only have 20 minutes, so I'll try to be brief. So, Kerry, I was really fortunate. I was able to get into the industry working for a really good mechanical contractor that started in Atlanta, Georgia back in 1982. And at that time, there were a lot of people, companies in particular, installing big IBM mainframes that were water cooled. And our company happened to be a high quality, highly skilled company that did a lot of installations on behalf of a manufacturer that did the chillers and the air handlers. So we did a lot of startup work. We did a lot of installation. And I kind of got exposed to the mission critical world, mostly at 3 a.m. on Sunday morning when you're trying to get systems started up for Monday compute.
Oh, happy days.
Yeah, you know how those go. But so as the 80s kind of rolled on and then we went into more of a PC environment, we started having traditional, what we would now consider a traditional data center built. I just really always was intrigued by that. And with a mechanical background, I learned the different types of heat rejection that you could have for mission critical. And I did that work in the field and then as project management and as sales and what have you. And then in 1999, my wife and I launched a company called Airtight Mechanical. And our focus was on data centers as well. So we did service, maintenance, repair, and some installation of HVAC, heat rejection, cooling equipment for data centers was about 80% of our revenue. And we ran that company for 15 years. And then 5 years ago this month, we actually sold it to Service Logic, where I currently work. So all of that time, which, God, it seems like it went by in a hurry now, has been kind of centered around the mission critical, mechanical, understanding the electrical side really well, fire suppression, life safety, kind of all that stuff that rolls into what we consider a mission critical environment. So that's kind of how I wound up here.
Yeah, and I think, people don't really understand that when it comes to heat rejection and cooling, that's part of the sort of holy trinity. When you cook Cajun food, you have the holy trinity, which is celery, onions, and peppers. And in data centers, there's kind of a holy trinity, power, cooling, and compute. And so, from a cooling perspective, a lot of these jobs are trade-related jobs. Some of them are apprenticeships where you can get training, while you're on the job and not have a massive amount of college debt. So,
absolutely.
And it's something that every single data center has.
And that was my route. I went through the union apprenticeship in the local 72 pipe fitters and air conditioning tradesman union in Atlanta. 4-year program, came out with zero debt, got paid every year to go to school. Went to school at night, obviously, but, to be able to graduate and come out of a program and make decent money out of the gate, it was a great route for me.
Yeah, and I think, there's a lot of opportunities here for people that are in trades, and we don't really talk about trades enough in this industry. But, from the electrical union side, certainly from the HVAC side, it's a great way to get into this industry. And, in a lot of cases, those companies will pay for your degree if you want to go on and get your degree afterwards, but at least it's a good way to get your foot in the door and get started.
Absolutely. You're so right. And my company it was based in Charlotte, North Carolina, not a notoriously strong union town. So we were not a union contractor, but I built our in-house apprenticeship training program based on my 4 years experience. And over the 15 years that we ran the company, we were able to put 14 young people through the local community college. Some got the degree, some only chose to go, partway through the program. No cost to them. The company paid for it as long as they maintained adequate and consistent grade and attendance, and then showed the proper attitude on the job. And to this day, that company is still in the Service Logic family. And a lot of those young people that started over there are still there 15 years later. So it's pretty cool to watch that whole evolution and progression. And, you help kids buy their first house, and you help kids go through their first, having their family. And you just see the progression of their life, and you know that because they chose to do this particular thing, which for us was air, it's really fun to see that cycle. Yesterday, I was looking at an article, Rich Miller, how he in the data center world.
Yeah.
Rich had an aerial, I'm assuming it was a drone shot of a Digital Realty campus up in Ashburn, Virginia, and it was a flyover of the campus. And I was just looking at that, thinking, because I'm always thinking about labor hours and how many people and who's available, just kind of naturally cooked in my brain. So I'm looking at this. I don't know. There must have been 60 generators behind the building, and hundreds of pieces of heat rejection equipment on the roof and on the ground. And I'm just thinking, how many families that touched just that one campus? And I think that was building L that they had listed. But when you look at the holistic, family unit, so like my little company, we had 40 employees when we sold, but we touched over 125 lives with Girl Scouts and Little League and wives, and so it really helps you see the whole dynamic of that person's career blossom by giving them something that they can bank on, which is that skilled education. And was reading a piece this morning about the construction industry in general, and skilled trades are always the topic now.
Well, and I mean, realistically, if it weren't for trades, none of us would have a job, right? Because none of the stuff would be built to start with.
Yeah, and it's really, when you think about that, I'm going to the airport in a few minutes, and I've done some work at the Charlotte airport in the past, and you think about how many different trades are involved out there, from obviously air conditioning, where my brain goes, but you think about generators, you think about jet mechanics, you think about carpenters and masonry workers. And it's just a list that goes on. And the fact that you can go through these programs, whether it be a 6-week crash course to get you up and going while you go to school, or, as you said earlier, some companies will pay for your entire degree. You're learning on the job. You're learning as you're being educated. And really, if you think about it, that's why doctors serve time doing internships in hospitals, because they're learning in the classroom, but you can only do so much to a cadaver. You need a real patient. So it's the same concept to me. You're working on an actual situation or an actual problem while you're being educated, so you're rapidly able to apply the theory to the real life scenario.
Every data center is different, to your point. What works in one data center may not necessarily work in another. Even the attached environments where you've got the network operations centers and the office space, that's going to be different than the data center proper. And there's a lot of different types of cooling or heat rejection in the data center industry. You want to touch on what some of those are, and just sort of a quick explanation for those that are considering this as a career?
Yeah, it's as wide and as varied as we can think about now. And a lot of it, or not a lot of it, better said, some of it is geographically dictated. Can you use outdoor air for cooling the data center or to drive the heat out of the data center? And, that's kind of a misconception we have. We think about cooling a data center, but we're really, our job is to get the heat out of it, not cool it. So you think about using these big, heavy duty industrial chillers that cool thousands of gallons of water, and that water then is used as the heat rejection medium that goes through an air handler. Or if you think about an air conditioner like in your home that has a compressorized pumped gas in it on a mega scale, you have that environment. You have some that are ventilation only. And again, if you think about going to Greenland or Iceland and building a data center, or Sweden, which some of the more popular web hosting and web search engines have done, you can run year round on just ventilation. Um, and then
Yeah,
the
actually,
other,
even in Phoenix, Arizona, you can run a considerable part of the year on outside air. But I think that's something that people don't realize is, we're not trying to cool things down to 50 degrees
right,
anymore. We're
right.
trying to, reject heat to a level where the stuff works, and outside air works, even in Phoenix, which is something that, not everybody would consider.
Well, with the advancements made in adiabatic cooling, which is what's used there, and a lot of people refer to that as an old-timey swamp cooler. And being a Southern guy, I know what that means. Even in North Carolina, you were talking about Phoenix. We have a large facility that is a social media platform, and those guys ran. I think 2 years ago, I saw where they ran on 98% outside air over the course of the year, and then you use either a water based or refrigerant based to trim the load when the humidity rises. So there's just a plethora of ways of cooling, or again purging that heat out of the system. And one more thing that I find really interesting. It's kind of a buzz right now. You hear a lot of people talking about the edge compute. And what does the edge mean? Well, it depends on who you ask and what time of day that happens to be.
It's kind of
Um,
like cloud, right?
exactly. So the edge that I have been engaged with through Service Logic and doing a little bit of consulting on it is more about multiple sites in small environments that traditionally haven't been considered a data center. So you still have the, you said earlier, the holy trilogy, which is power, ping, and pipe. So electricity, um, connectivity, and some way to get the heat out of the building. And we're finding it really, it's kind of funky, but kind of fun too, because some of these little edge environments are like, on the side of the road, in these little huts that used to just be a cross connect cabinet for the phone company. Well, now they're fiber exchange facilities. So, it's just totally changed the world of these little bitty micro data centers. And that, again, from modular to roadside boxes, you name it. And that's what the edge looks like to us from a mechanical standpoint.
Well, and I think, that really brings up a big point about labor and labor shortages. As we start bringing edge compute, they're literally going to be in every city, every town, everywhere. And right now, there's an issue with a lot of the talent being drawn to large data center cities. And really, that need is going to be everywhere. And really, if you're a person, you stand and look around, you don't have to look far before you see a data center, even if it's in somebody's corporate office building. It doesn't have to be a big, giant colo facility.
Or hanging on the side of a utility pole, or 5G and 6G following behind it. How do you think about running a service call on a traffic control system that really is now a data center because of autonomous vehicle traffic, and it has to be up and running? Or, unfortunately, you're going to have crashes. Um, And then with the advancement from LTE or 4G, as you want to call it, to G, you almost have to double the number of sites to get the adequate coverage to get that reduced latency that we're all after for IoT and for the vehicle. So, and I've had conversations. We're working with a major manufacturer right now on how to help them cover the edge sites that they are either building, buying, or inheriting. It comes down to, I mean, as crazy as it is, you're in a city in the Midwest, and on your spring PM on this particular set of edge boxes, you may have a guy on a dang scooter. I don't know yet, because you gotta get to these little bitty places, and there's no parking, and it's just one more fun challenge that my almost 40 years in the industry have been wrought with challenges from refrigerants of R11 and R12 and now R22 going away, all the way through how do we deal with servicing this box that is part of the life support system. So it's pretty cool and pretty fun.
Definitely to be determined what that, like you said, what the final outcome of that is going to be. And I think it's going to be different in every city and every place. There's permitting issues and a ton that goes into that, and, into the planning and figuring out where these are going to be, and are they going to be set top boxes, and what you can do remotely, and, what happens, what takes over if there's a crash and somebody hits the pole.
Exactly. And, we've spent a lot of time with that particular OEM talking about software and what can we do proactively and predictably that will enable fewer service calls, because there's fewer people to catch service calls. And, we talk about the skilled trades being a multifaceted industry. Well, just that one application alone is going to require a good general knowledge of ventilation, air conditioning, electrical, physical safety, physical security, understanding how cameras work. It's going to create a new breed of what I call a site technician versus an electrician or an air conditioning guy. And as you know, and many know, that there's several different accredited firms that are offering scholarships. iMasons is one that is offering scholarships, and especially to help us get more diversity into our industry. There's so many smart and capable ladies out there that haven't been exposed to our industry because it's always just been a guy thing. There's so many opportunities for females to come into our industry, and actually some of a large chunk of that iMasons money that is set aside for scholarships is set aside for female. So
50%.
Yeah, so it's impressive. And that's one mechanism to get people certified. So I'm actively trying to help recruit. I try to help recruit all the time, either on my own for service logic companies or for the industry at large. And I'll do that till I'm done. And whenever I'm done, we're still going to have to recruit people into the trades, because we're going to be that shorthanded.
So let's talk a little bit about recruiting, because that is a different beast for sure. In this industry as a whole, we kind of went down this path where we let machines, everybody threw resumes into this giant machine and 4 or 5 floated to the top. What are you guys doing differently to attract, trades and other folks that don't tick every little box that is required that the machine would spit out otherwise?
Well, I'll tell you a great example that just happened 2 weeks ago. One of our companies is called Piedmont Service Company. They're based in Raleigh, North Carolina. They have a branch in Greenville, North Carolina, which is the eastern part of the state. And those guys are working really closely with high schools. And we're recruiting, like tapping down into the 8th grade to try to get an interest, and try to work with the school boards and the curriculum advisors to bring more skilled trades training back into schools. I live in Charlotte, which is not the capital, but it's the biggest city in North Carolina. And this particular school board, the Charlotte Mecklenburg, has no skilled trades that are a part of a normal curriculum. They have now established a high school to try to bring that back. But, when I was in the high school in the 80s, shop class and metal shop and wood shop were just an elective that most guys took, for whatever reason, whether you liked it or you thought it was going to be an easier thing than doing gymnastics. But, we've got to start back at that grassroots, and it's that one kid that you see at church that he's 19 and he doesn't know what he's going to do, or it's that young lady who graduated and she's got this degree in the advanced civilization climb of modern Zimbabwe, and you can't get a job with that. So it's finding it really is. It's got to be one-on-one, and it's got to be multi-touch all at the same time. Early and often in real life exposure.
For a while, there was kind of a negative stigma put on people that went the trades route, but not everybody learns the same way. And, to be fair, before colleges, everybody learned on the job, right? So that's not to say that it's a bad way to learn. And, in some cases, it eliminates a lot of classes that may or may not be applicable to what you decide you want to do in life, right? Not everybody takes a test well. So
yeah, I'm that guy. I did not enjoy the curriculum of school, but I really excelled in the metal shop part or the car part. And that we're different generationally. Folks now do a whole lot more things electronically, but there's still these youngsters out there, and I find them and I see them and I talk to them, and a whole lot of other people are doing the same thing. We're finding them. You really have to work at doing it. And then once you get one within reach, you got to make sure you keep them hugged up and tight. And then another thing too, Carrie, there's a lady, she actually is a iron worker that I follow pretty closely and have began a distant friendship with. Her name's Jamie McMillan. Is a Toronto-based lady who went through a whole year or went through a whole apprenticeship program. Now, most of the time, I think she still works to pay bills, but she has rededicated her whole career in going into schools, high schools mostly, and recruiting, both male and female, but really showing the female students that, hey, you don't have to sit behind a desk. You don't have to be in a cubicle. Another lady on LinkedIn that's really cool is called Barbie the Welder. I don't know if you've ever seen her, but again, an example of how you can use skilled trades and welding or brazing or drilling to make art. And then you take those skills as maybe that's your side hustle to start with, and you are able to get a job supporting, a Facebook or a Google or a data center, because those same skills can apply. So
and there are a lot of those companies that are looking at sort of adjacent careers, I guess, to get more people in this industry, because it's growing just so fast. There's just not enough people to go around.
And remarkably, it's not just a U.S. problem. It's a worldwide thing. If you look at, I was reading a piece earlier this morning about just how big the data center market had gotten, and the U.S. is third in that market. So if we're experiencing those kind of problems with staffing, we're going to be no different than freaking Sweden. It's not a U.S. thing; it's a generational world thing, in my opinion.
That's really true. one of the series that we did, we recorded, we were talking to a couple folks that have really done like their PhD thesis on careers and diversity and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that came to light is that, most children by the time they're 7 formulate what they're going to be in life. That's their basis of all the careers they can weigh because that's been their exposure. Yeah. So to your point, getting in much, much earlier and starting kids in, high school, junior high, and really helping them sort of formulate what they want to do. And, if they're great craftsmen and they want to work with their hands, then that's amazing.
It's required.
There's definitely a spot for those in this industry and others. And that's kind of the whole reason for the podcast series is to reach out to people that may not see that in their quick line of exposure. So I guess, getting close to wrapping this up here, if you had to pick, your favorite thing about this industry or your favorite thing about your career path, what would you say?
I've thought about that a lot because when I'm explaining my past and my career route and all that stuff to young people or, really people that are my age and maybe transitioning into a new career, what is that thing? And I think for me, it allows me to use critical thinking skills, which I work on because I like to solve problems. I don't like to sit at a desk very much, and my boss will probably attest to that fact. I like to be out and about. If we're doing a pilot project on, some new technology, I'm not dialing in, listening to the conference call. I'm up on the roof looking at it, And so what I think it does is allows folks like me who are not traditionally minded to sit in a cubicle or in an office or, hit a keyboard 24/7. I think it gives us a lot of freedom, and it gives you the ability to figure out what particular vein of the trade you want to learn. Air conditioning, if you think about it, is a big term. It's houses, it's buildings, it's factories, it's cooling, computer chips, whatever you want to say air conditioning is. I just happened to hit in this data center market and just really loved it. So, I think it just gives you the ability to refine and really go after something that you want to do versus what somebody says you should or have to do. So I think freedom, self-responsibility, self-starting, and, getting to keep a little bit of that cowboy spirit doesn't hurt my feelings a bit.
I hear you. Well, Greg, I absolutely appreciate your time this morning. I think this has been insightful. I look forward to talking to the rest of you guys on future podcasts. Greg, have a great one and safe travels.
I appreciate it, Carrie. Thanks for taking time to do these. You're making a difference, and let's just keep plowing ahead. We'll get there one day.
There you go.
Take care, girl. Talk to you soon.